to go over a video about aliens. It's going to be fun. I love this guy's videos. If you guys are not subscribing to him, you definitely should. His name is Oki's Weird Stories on YouTube. And he's brilliant. The last video I did reacting to his content is probably one of the more popular videos I've had on my channel. And I laughed all the way through the goddamn thing. So I'm expecting more of the same here. So let's get into it, shall we? This is Oki's Weird Stories. And the title of the video is The Feds Told Him to Chase Aliens. Yes. Let's do it. And do give this guy a subscribe, please.
Recently, I watched a documentary called Mirage Men, which is about government disinformation campaigns using UFOs as a cover-up for top-secret military projects. The documentary begins with the story of a man named Paul Benowitz. He was a businessman who owned a humidity instrument manufacturing company called Thunder Scientific, which had contracts with NASA and the Air Force. He lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, across from the Kirkland Air Force Base. In 1979, he began to see kaleidoscopic lights moving in irregular patterns above
I believe I heard something about this, actually.
it. He started to film and take pictures of the lights, amassing 2,600 feet of 8mm film and thousands of photographs. Using electronic surveillance equipment, he recorded electrical magnetism being emitted from above the base. Additionally, he recorded signals using homemade radio receivers with an array of antennas pointed towards Kirtland Air Force Base. Benowitz surmised that he was documenting alien crafts. He was a card-carrying member of the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization and had a keen interest in the widespread reports of mysterious cattle mutilations, which were plaguing New Mexico.
Just curious, guys, what do you think of UFOs? I mean, I know most people think that aliens probably exist since the universe is so expansive and infinite. But what do you guys think of UFOs? Obviously the government has finally came out and said these things exist. But what do you think they are? I mean, do you think that they're government cover-up? Do you think they're actually aliens? Do you think they're interdimensional beings? What do you think these things are?
Mexico at the time.
One of the weirdest activities attributed to aliens is the bizarre mutilation of animals. Scattered stories of carved up livestock and strange lights in the sky date back to the 1890s in the U.S., but it wasn't until the early 1970s that a pattern began to emerge. Today, nearly 15,000 mutilation.
What about cattle mutilations? What's the thing with those? I mean, do you think they're connected, or is this just a hoax or something separate?
Reports have been received.
He also believed that aliens were abducting people and taking them to their deep underground military bases to implant them with mind-control devices. He considered Archuleta Mesa, near the New Mexican town of Dulce, to be the location of their subterranean base.
I hear you found a strange object up here. Some people think it's one of our satellites. What is it, a flying saucer?
It's a flying saucer. Yeah, So Derpshot says they likely exist, but I lean towards the theory that they can't observe us because we're too far away. If they're observing the light reflected by our planet, they might only be seeing the early days or maybe the dinosaurs. Yeah, but what about I'm talking about the actual physical objects that are here now, that the government has come out and said are a thing, right? Are these are actual things. They're real. They've been documented and so what are those? See, I think there could be some explanations for these things. I have this weird theory about them being us from the future, but we'll go over that a little bit later.
After a 15-month investigation, Benowitz shared his findings with the Air Force and warned them of an alien threat. Documents gathered via Freedom of Information requests show that Benowitz was visited by 2 Air Force officials.
We are the Men in Black. Galaxy Defenders. Yeah, he got hit up by the MIB.
The important one to this story is AFOSI Special Agent Richard Doty. Doty and his colleague inspected Benowitz's recordings, footage, and photographs.
Bob Lazar's the shit, by the way, Derpshot. Yeah, I've seen a couple of his videos. I like Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind is one that I just recently watched. It's pretty interesting. I don't know how much of it I buy. I'm kind of a skeptic when it comes to this stuff, but there's it's obvious I like to think about it, and it's obvious that there's something going on. It's just to the point where, I mean, it's been readily admitted by the government. So,
and reported that they could not determine for sure what Benowitz had filmed, but that they believed that it did not pose a threat to the base. As for the electromagnetic pulses, they wrote that they informed the Foreign Technology Department, which intended to inspect Benowitz's materials. In the end, it was concluded that the Air Force would not conduct any further investigations. Despite this, a meeting took place on November 10, 1980, between Benowitz, several officers, and scientists from the Air Force Base. The Air Force documentation of the meeting reads, Dr. Benowitz presented film and photographs of alleged unidentified aerial objects photographed over Kirtland Air Force Base, New Mexico, during the last 15 months. Dr. Benowitz also related that he had documented proof that he was in contact with the aliens flying the objects. On 17...
He was in contact with them? What? Okay. Michael says, my theory is that we are quarantined. Aliens know we are a threat to the galaxy, and so they don't allow any communication in or out. I could believe that. It sounds kind of like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy stuff. Like, you know, maybe one of these, they're aware of us, but maybe one day they're going to have to build a intergalactic highway just like directly through our planet or something like that. But I've heard that before, that yeah, we suck, and so the aliens are staying away from us and just keeping a close eye on us so that we don't develop to a level that could destroy things before we get our act together. This is a similar idea to first contact situations in Star Trek as well. The drones that are here are only to observe us. They aren't living aliens. They're drones with androids on board. Yeah, that could be a thing. I believe that. I can believe the government has spoken to the drones. They probably warned the government that they would destroy us if we ventured too far before we fix our own problems. Then why is the government still fucking shit up so bad, man? They're like, no, we're not going to. We're gonna fuck shit up more. Yeah, we're gonna make all our people hate each other. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
In November 1980, Special Agent Richard C. Doty advised Dr. Benowitz that the AFOSI would not be involved with the investigation of these objects. The report also mentions that 2 senators contacted the Air
because they're stupid. All governments are stupid. Yeah, I do tend to agree with that too.
Air Force to ask them if they were investigating Benowitz's findings. It states that Special Agent Richard Doty informed them that they would not. Now, what you just heard is the official story, one that Special Agent Richard Doty says is not true. According to Doty, Benowitz was not recording aliens like you thought. Instead, he was recording evidence of classified military projects. Special Agent Richard Doty claims that he was assigned to the position of a disinfo agent. He says that he was ordered to encourage Benowitz to continue to believe that his alien hypothesis was correct, in order to conceal the sensitive information leak that Benowitz allegedly stumbled onto.
Well, I worked in counterintelligence. I was a counterintelligence officer, and my job was to conduct counterintelligence operations. And most of those counterintelligence operations dealt with the protection of highly classified projects that the Air Force or other government agencies were working on. For instance, the Paul Benowitz case.
The fucking deep state, guys. Uh-oh.
He strayed upon a highly classified drone project that was occurring at Kirtland Air Force Base.
I think I need a head change for this shit.
Headquarters advised me to protect those projects at all means. And one of the things that I was supposed to do is convince him that what he was seeing was UFOs and not the classified drones. Well, right. You got to understand that Paul Benowitz was already a believer in UFOs. Right. He was already an investigator from UFON. So when I went to him and I said simply, Paul, don't you think that what you photographed was UFOs, extraterrestrial? He said, I know they are. Mm-hmm. That's all it took.
Doty claims that multiple intelligence agencies were surveilling Benowitz's every move, that Benowitz was given a secret $75,000 grant to continue to investigate aliens.
This is kind of interesting. So were they lying to him, or were they just kind of feeding ideas into his head, or were these actually aliens? What's going on here?
That the NSA had set up a spy station in a vacant house right across the street from Benowitz's home. Doty claims that the NSA was beaming low-frequency transmissions that when decoded with a computer, which they supplied to him, would send messages which appeared to be aliens directly communicating with Benowitz.
Oh man, the obfuscation. Okay, so what the fuck is going on here? Okay, so like, do you think that this is a double thing where they're like he thinks they're aliens, so we're gonna play into that, and then once we play into that, he'll figure out it's us, and then he'll not think it's aliens, but it's actually aliens. Yes, I got it. Sound like a Republican right now.
Furthermore, Doty claims that the government devised methods to ensure that Benowitz focused on Archuleta Mesa and not on Kirtland Air Force Base. Since Benowitz believed that Archuleta Mesa in Dulce, New Mexico, was the location of the underground alien base, Doty claims that they staged the area to look like one. He says that they placed storage tanks, equipment shacks, and fake air vents to drive the point home. According to
Michael says they want to control everything and muddy the waters with disinfo, like how they have agents infiltrate protests to turn them violent. Yeah. Good point. They want anyone to who opposes the status quo to look insane violent. Yeah. And they're probably like feeding this into this guy so he looks like crazy or something. I don't know.
to Richard Doty, they set up searchlights equipped with rotating lenses to simulate the appearance of UFOs in the sky. In 1981, Doty claims that he took Benowitz on a helicopter ride to survey Archuleta Mesa and pointed out the phony structures the government had planted. Then he says that he encouraged Benowitz to consult the aliens which he had been communicating with to find out more. Afterwards, Doty says that Benowitz started to fixate on Dulce.
Were they just like trolling this guy? I mean, it seems like they're just trolling him. Or like, I don't know. Like, it'd be funny if at the end, like, fucking a general pops out and he's like, smile, you're on candid camera. Or some shit like that. We got you. You've been punked.
Rather than Kirtland Air Force Base, Benowitz, who was also a pilot, would fly his own helicopter over
Right? It seems like a lot of effort for one guy. Like, it's weird.
Archuleta Mesa on countless scouting missions throughout the next several years. By 1986, Benowitz's delusions and paranoia nearly destroyed him. When he first started investigating the strange lights in the sky, he was a successful businessman and physicist with a loving family. By the end of his journey in the late 1980s, he was an emaciated, unstable insomniac who had trouble expressing a coherent thought. He kept an arsenal of weapons around him.
They fucking MK'd Ultra'd his ass. They fed him a bunch of weird shit or like something. Oh man, they literally made him crazy.
His home and installed extra locks as he believed that aliens were coming through his walls at night and injecting him with chemicals. He also suspected
Oh, trust me, I'll talk about the Canada truckers later off time.
that his wife Cindy had been implanted with an alien tracking device. In August 1988, his sons took over his business after he barricaded himself in his home. He was later admitted to a mental health facility after his family checked him in for nervous exhaustion. He stayed there for a little over a month. Luckily, Benowitz eventually recovered.
I'm starting to get it here. So like these guys were secretly taking him like to look at these things, and he couldn't tell anybody because he's under some sort of like contract not to tell anybody. So he's like, you know, starting to look really paranoid to his family, and he's on phone calls with like government officials who he's actually on the phone with, but they don't think that's the case. They just think it's like, you know, him being crazy. And so then they eventually like fucking what, like put him away for schizophrenia or something like that. I could see that happening, but I don't know why they would do that unless it was actually aliens or they were trying to cover something up.
Recovered his sanity. He remained interested in UFOs, but his relentless search for alien life slowed down considerably. Richard Doty claims that he visited Benowitz near the end of his life and confessed that much of the things he told him was disinformation and that he was ordered to lie to him. According to Doty, Benowitz refused to believe him.
I tried to convince Paul that what he saw was in fact something military. He wouldn't believe me. He was convinced it was UFOs.
Paul Benowitz died in Albuquerque, New Mexico on June 23, 2003. He was 75 years old. Paul Benowitz's theories about an underground base in Dulce live on in popular UFO mythology. There was a man named Phil Schneider who was a former explosives engineer employed by the US government who claimed that he worked at the base and that in 1979 he was part of a firefight between US military and gray-type extraterrestrials.
You know, it's crazy. Well, do you think these people like just convinced themselves of this stuff, or do you think they actually happened, or what's the deal, man? Like,
When I first heard this story in the
Yeah, I
documentary
think Bob
Mirage
Lazar is
Man,
from
I found
Albuquerque.
it really compelling. Logically, it makes sense. A UFO enthusiast with access to powerful equipment, since he owned a company that had contracts with NASA and the Air Force, starts to record evidence of top-secret government projects from an Air Force base directly across from his house. Multiple government agencies collude to conceal their classified projects from going public, so they decide to encourage and even to trick him into continuing his wild alien goose chase. In the end, their efforts to mislead him drive him mad. It's a great story, but is it true? Much of this tale comes from two men, Richard Doty and Bill Moore. Now, the problem with trusting anything that Richard Doty says is that he's a fucking liar. Richard Doty's status
Tell us how you really feel.
as an alleged disinformation agent has afforded him a career as a whistleblower in the UFO community. He has appeared in countless documentaries, radio interviews, books, and at conventions, all of which have no doubt been very profitable for him. Here's an example of some of the wacky stuff that Richard Doty says.
Did the CIA or one of the agencies lose an extraterrestrial biological entity?
Well, yes, they did. There was an extraterrestrial biological entity that escaped from a holding area out at Area 51.
They should name him Abe or Eb. Oh, that's funny. Biological entity. EB?
And what happened? Did we get the EBE back?
Yeah, yes, we did. Well, we got the body back. We recovered the body, but it was in a holding area. It escaped. I don't know how it escaped. And the creature made it all the way up north towards Warm Springs, Nevada.
Were you involved, or were you at Groom Lake at this time?
I was. The only thing I did was I notified some people, and I maintained contact with local authorities.
This guy sounds full of shit. New Mexico, which is where Albuquerque is. Yeah, he's from, Bob Lazar, man. That's where wasn't the Phoenix Lights? Yeah, Phoenix Lights. That was a big thing that's happening, going on, or that was going on in the 90s. That made national news because these were crazy fucking things in the sky, and I think they cover that a lot in Bob Lazar's films too.
Just got to know, how do you call the county sheriff there and speak to him about an escaped alien?
No, it wasn't we didn't
Yeah, Paul's a true story.
use the word alien.
Right. How do you have that conversation?
Well, we called and advised them that we're searching for a highly dangerous military person who escaped from confinement.
As you can see, he's not very credible. However, it is well
Right? Like I kind of want to just go to the Southwest and see if I can fucking find some aliens, man. That'd be a lot of fun. That's something I've always wanted to do. Ever since I was a kid watching the X-Files and stuff, I was like, I need to find Area 51. I almost wanted to go and storm Area 51 when people were going there and trying to get into that place. It's just like Naruto run toward that motherfucker. Get shot, probably.
documented that he was a special agent in the AFOSI between 1980 to 1988, and it's true that he was tasked with handling Paul Benowitz's case. Air Force reports show that he visited Benowitz's house to inspect his research materials, and that he spoke to two senators when they called to ask about the status of Benowitz's investigation and if the Air Force was pursuing it, to which he said no. In 1989, Bill Moore, a writer of conspiracy novels such as The Roswell Incident and The Philadelphia Experiment, spoke at a Mutual UFO Network conference. There he shocked the crowd when he announced that he engaged in a disinformation campaign against Paul Benowitz on behalf of the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, and that he had done so in cooperation with Special Agent Richard Doty.
It became apparent to me that my supplying information to the government through Doty on the activities of Paul Benowitz, APRO, and to a lesser extent several other individuals.
This guy's full of shit too, I can tell.
Was to be a part of this equation. I also discovered that whatever it was that Benowitz was involved with, he was the subject of considerable interest on the part of not one, but several government agencies, and that they were actively trying to defuse him by pumping as much disinformation through him as he could possibly absorb.
His book, The Roswell Incident, popularized the belief that there was an alien crash in Roswell,
That's kind of what I said.
New Mexico, in 1947. People hardly spoke about this theory before Bill Moore published his book in 1980. Additionally, his book, The Philadelphia Experiment, was a smash hit. So why would Bill Moore want to intentionally tarnish his name? If Richard Doty is lying about being a disinformation agent in order to enjoy a lucrative career as a whistleblower, then why would Bill Moore tank his reputation in order to aid in Doty's deception? Before we get to that, what exactly is Bill Moore's story? And how did he engage in a disinformation campaign against Paul Benowitz? Bill Moore says that he was first approached by a high-level intelligence official called Felkin, who connected him with Doty. Doty claims that Felkin was with the Defense Intelligence Agency. However, it's never been confirmed that Felkin exists. Bill Moore claims that
What about the Winter Soldier? Is he hanging out?
Richard Doty offered to give him classified UFO information on the condition that he spy on fellow ufologists and feed them disinformation. He said that he eventually accepted Doty's offer and that his first target was Paul Benowitz. He claims that he was instructed to befriend Paul Benowitz and to present to him a phony top-secret Air Force document called Project Aquarius. This bogus document allegedly contained detailed photo analysis of Benowitz's UFO research material. Now, remember how I said that the Air Force told Benowitz and two senators that they were not looking into his investigation? Well, according to Moore, once Benowitz saw the Project Aquarius documents, he took it as proof that the Air Force was actually taking his investigation very seriously. In the book Project Beta, Moore is quoted saying, "My understanding was that Benowitz was expected to wave it to the press and others as proof of what he was saying about an alien invasion, at which point the document would be denounced as counterfeit and Benowitz would be further discredited. According to Doty, he was ordered to pass along..."
Right. I just don't get the reason why they would be doing this, right? Like, there's got to be a reason if the government was doing this, unless these two guys are just completely full of crap.
On the document to make Benowitz believe that the Air Force was taking his alien investigation seriously, when in reality they were not. Doty says there were many similar government disinformation campaigns that were performed against the UFO community at the time. These include hoax documents such as MJ-12, Project Serpo, and the Carter briefings. For example, disinfo documents were allegedly shown to cattle mutilations filmmaker Linda Moulton Howe, who says that Richard Doty invited her to Kirtland Air Force Base and showed her classified documents proving that the US government concealed the truth about several UFO crashes. She also says that he told her that extraterrestrials manipulated DNA in primates to create Homo sapiens. Richard Doty says that he was ordered to show her the documents and that they were sent from the Pentagon.
The alien is the Winter Soldier. Yes, I knew it. He's a fall guy, maybe. Michael says they need the public to focus on a single guy who seems legit, but then they prove he isn't, and believers lose faith in UFOs and shut up. Yeah, that maybe, but like that's never fucking worked. Like, people believe something, they get it stuck in their head. They're gonna believe it no matter the fuck what. They're gonna think, oh well, because people don't trust the government either. So it's like,
if this is true, then why would
it would just cause division, maybe.
the government bother doing such a thing? In the case of Paul Benowitz, it makes sense if they tricked him in order to safeguard classified projects. But why bother slipping fake documents to people reporting about things like time travel, alien abductions, and cattle mutilations? So there are many theories about why this might happen. Some believe that the government is attempting to discredit UFO research by disseminating absurd disinformation. Others think that it's part of a psychological experiment and molding and manipulating people's beliefs.
That could be too. I mean, like MK Ultra shit, like, right? They were trying to figure out psychological warfare or something.
Another theory revolves around the introduction of the Freedom of Information Act in 1966, when thousands of pages of once classified documents were released to the public.
Oh, yeah, they used him as kind of a patsy to convince others that aliens were somewhere around so that they could distract them. I don't know. That seems like crap to me. At the time, they didn't want UFOs public. The people trusted the government back then. Now we don't, because they've always always got up to shit like this. Well, yeah, a lot of, but you know what? It's weird. The government like declassifies this shit like all the time now. So is it like want us to distrust them, or is it like that they're going to come clean with something huge or something like that? I don't know.
UFO researchers began poring over documents and submitting FOAs because they wanted proof that the government was lying to them about UFOs. Therefore, the idea goes that the Russians started to monitor the UFO community in case they stumbled onto any information on secret military hardware or black budget projects. It's theorized that the US government decided to leak silly things like Jesus Christ being an alien in order to muddy the waters and to throw the Russians off. Now, these are all interesting theories, but there's no proof to support any of them. Let's get back to Bill Moore, the man who ruined his career to confess that he was working with the government as an informant and spreader of disinformation. In May 1987, Moore was part of a group of ufologists who circulated supposedly leaked documents called Operation Majestic 12, aka MJ-12. The documents claimed that President Truman created a secret committee to conceal the crash of an alien craft at Roswell, New Mexico, in order.
Yeah, the whole Roswell story, that's well known. Michael says, now I think the government turned a 180 and they want us to be ready for UFOs, maybe as enemies, so we all have to band together like Ozymandias is playing. Yeah, well, maybe, but maybe it's deeper than that. Maybe the aliens are like came to the government and said, you have to prepare your people for infiltration by us, or the blending with us, or maybe we're going to be slaves to them or some shit like that. And so they're trying to create discontent in the world so that we're like fucked up, but then like maybe some information's leaked. I don't know, man. There's just it's dizzying the kind of stuff that can happen. And who knows what the government's up to, you know? I mean, obviously they knew about UFOs and they finally like admitted these things are true. And then it goes dark, it goes silent. We haven't heard anything about it since, really. I mean, there's not a lot of big news about it. Like everybody just kind of went back to their lives and it was in the news for like 3 days. It's weird.
In order to reverse engineer it, and that this committee was controlling UFO information, how it was released to the public, and how the government should deal with it. MJ-12 was later proven to be a fabrication.
Maybe they're trying to fatten us up so they can eat us.
Bill Moore claimed that he found a declassified memo in the National Archives written by President Eisenhower's assistant, Robert Cutler, which mentioned MJ-12. After releasing the MJ-12 document and the supposed memo, the UFO community started to accuse Bill Moore of fabricating a hoax. This was prior to his confession that he was a disinformation agent. In 1982, nearly 3 years before Bill Moore claimed that he and his team were given the MJ-12 document, he spoke to a writer for the National Enquirer named Bob Pratt about collaborating on a nonfiction book together about MJ-12. Bob Pratt said that he insisted on making it a fictional novel instead of nonfiction, as he could not confirm much of the information Moore shared with him. In 1983, Bill Moore allegedly spoke to a UFO researcher named Brad Sparks about the idea of creating fraudulent government documents containing insider information he learned from Doty in order to entice former military personnel to speak out about UFOs and to ignore their oath to secrecy. Sparks said that,
you know, it's kind of weird. Like, why would he have like seriously like ruined his career as an author in order to like put that out? Did he know that would happen? If he didn't, then maybe he was just a huckster and then thought everybody would fall for it.
That he advised Moore against it. Look, the legend of Paul Bennewitz makes for a great story. One that actually makes a lot of logical sense. But its veracity is marred by a lack of evidence and because it hinges on the testimony of two serial fabulists, Richard Doty and Bill Moore. In the book Project Beta, Doty and Moore both say that they saw magical colorful orbs about the size of softballs hovering near the ceiling in Bennewitz's home. So unless you believe in magical colorful orbs, then it's safe to say that these two are prone to embellishment at the very least.
There were things happening in Paul's life that we later determined wasn't coming from us or wasn't coming from.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, why would he lie about that? So is it, you know, I mean, it kind of points to it's true then, right? So if he was paid by the government, he didn't need to be a writer anymore. That's what I'm saying is like, so did he come out with the hoax for the government, knowing that he was going to get discredited. But if that's the case, if he knew he was going to get discredited by them, were there actually aliens or were there not? Or was this just some kind of giant troll to see what would happen by the government? I don't know. It's weird.
From U.S. intelligence, we didn't know where it was coming from, such as the orb incident that happened in his house, where an orb was flying around his house.
Until hard evidence is presented and more credible
It was a fucking drone from the neighbor.
witnesses come forward, I don't know if we'll ever know the truth about what really happened to Paul Benowitz.
One of the things that is quite disgusting is there's not much out there that's factual. The UFO community disinforms themselves. People go out there and write books, and without any facts, 90% of everybody that writes these books, these authors, had never been in the military, worked for the intelligence community.
And they want money. Lots and lots of money. And they know they can get it.
Never had a security clearance. And they're just relying on second, third, and fourth-hand information to write a book and then basically poison their readers and the rest of the UFO community.
If you like my videos, please support me on Patreon.
There's always that 1% though. You know, Michael says the UFO community is 99% bullshit. But yeah, what about that 1% though? And the thing is what doesn't make sense to me is like, why we live in a world where everybody has a fucking cell phone and like with 4K and shit, and there's still not a clear image of any of these things. I mean, and the government had them on the radar and stuff, but I don't think that they showed any like actual clear images of these things. It was all like radar images and stuff like that, right? I don't know, man. It could all just be fucking bullshit. They could be just trying to keep us busy so that we don't realize we're in the fucking Matrix and, you know, or hooked up, that we're computer programs, that we live in a simulation or some shit like that. I don't know. It's interesting to think about though. The thing is you want to keep an open mind, but not so open that your brains fall out, right? So do as much as you can, you know, entertain the notion, but never like solidify an idea till you have absolute proof. I guess that's my my sort of moral of the story here with this one. I think it's the 1% probably true. But those are the ones that are literally covered up. Real aliens wouldn't get filmed or caught. They're smarter than us. Yeah, that's another thing. Is like, unless they were trying to get caught, I don't think that they would. I don't know. Like I said, just, you know, use your brain, use your critical thinking, but have fun, you know, entertain these ideas. It can't hurt to give a look to things like this.